Hey guys, welcome to Franklin Woodworks. Well, it's time to make the cabinet doors for the miter station. And boy, have I got a brilliant idea that is going to be fantastic. And I can't wait to make it a reality. So I'll start off with a really nice piece of 8/4 oak that I'm going to use to make the stiles and rails. But this piece of oak is a little twisted and bowed and crowned, so I've got some milling to do. Add to that, because my shop is in total disarray because of the miter station build, I can't really get to my joiner. So I'll have to do all the milling using alternative means. To lessen the amount of material I'll have to mill away to get straight edges, I cut my 10-foot piece into 3 sections. I get out my jig that I usually use for tapering on the table saw, and I use it to put a nice straight edge on one side of the largest piece. And the 2 shorter pieces had a good enough edge that allowed me to run them against the fence of the table saw. In fact, I was able to get the shorter pieces straight and square using only the fence on the table saw. The longer piece needed more work than the table saw alone could give me. I was able to rip the long piece in half, but each half still had a slight twist that I had to get rid of. I did this by creating a sled to run through the planer, and I shimmed the workpiece on that sled to fool the planer into thinking I had a flat bottom on the workpiece. Once I had the top plane flat, I took the piece off the sled and ran it through the planer again, this time with the newly flattened side on the bottom. Now that I have stock that is straight and square, I can begin milling to the final dimensions. Because my table saw is set up so well, I can use it to resaw the stock to the final thickness I need for the stiles and rails. I did this in 2 passes, making sure to keep the same reference face against the fence when I flip the workpiece over for the second pass. Once that's done, I need to cut grooves in the stock to accept the cabinet door panels. I also do that on the table saw, and I take 2 passes for each groove, each pass using a different face for reference. I set up the cut so that the blade is slightly off-center in the workpiece. 2 passes, each with a different reference face, ensures the groove is wide enough to accept the panel, and it centers the groove in the stock. On the stiles, I have to cut tenons or tongues, depending on how you look at it. I got tired of changing blades, so I just used the square tooth blade I had in the saw that I used to cut the grooves. A little trial and error, and I had the fit just like I want it. I give all the pieces a slight round over just to relieve the edges. I also put a small chamfer on the ends of the stiles. Since the door won't be painted, and you'll see the change in the direction of the grain anyway, I decided to highlight the joint, not try to hide it. Assembly is pretty straightforward, and here you'll see that brilliant idea I was talking about. Instead of 3 doors on each side of the miter station, I decided to make 1 large door per side that's hinged on the top. This will save me a ton of time, only having to make 2 doors instead of 6. I'm a genius. Or am I? Turns out that the hinges were not nearly strong enough to hold the door open. Even if I doubled the amount of hinges, it still wouldn't have been strong enough to hold the door up. You know, I'm sure I could find hardware that would work and do what I wanted it to do. But as it turns out, I had the door propped open in the open position while I was working on it, and, this height is exactly even with my forehead. Fortunately, the camera wasn't running when I almost knocked myself unconscious. So, back to the drawing board. I decided that the best thing I could do was turn the door into 2 doors. This was a much better idea. And because I want all of you to continue to think of me as a fine Christian man, I'm not going to show me installing the hinges. I hate installing hinges. So I think things ended up fine, even though it didn't turn out the way I intended. But woodworking is a lot like golf. It's not always about how good your shot is. It's about how well you recover from your mistakes. And that's my life in a nutshell. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. And there you go.